Thank you so much for that kind and warm introduction, Hannah. I'd like to say good afternoon to you all. I hope you can hear me and see me well. Yes? Okay, perfect, perfect. Um, Good afternoon to you all. I'm really happy and excited to be here. I would like to thank you all for showing up. These are intense times, not only in the United States, but globally. For those of us on this side of the world, we have been glued to our TVs, and it's nice to kind of take a break and to put some of the things that are going on in the world that are at the base and root of our history here, especially in America. Professor Rebecca Schickling said it, wonderfully. Who are these others, right? And what is it about? And so I'm really honored to be here. And really, I have some thoughts to just really think with you all. And in particular, I'm interested in this relationship between religion and race. So, what is it about this relationship between religion and race? And when we think about our nation here, right, in the nation state, there's always been this tension, this perpetual, recursive tension between the narrative, right, these competing narratives that are true for dominant culture demographics. But as we just heard from our colleague, simply not true and non existent, right, for many other racial and ethnic minorities, BIPOC people. Um, and the tension and the narrative is this, right? So here I'm thinking about human rights in general, right? I'm thinking about democracy, and oftentimes I think I get a bit worried that the human rights and that the freedom so implicit and inherent in how we use the term democracy is a vision and a kind of an experiment, right? That has not always been true for others and maybe has never been true for certain kinds of others, right? So that, if we think about human rights, religious freedom, here I'm thinking about religion and race. And the way I like to pose it is, what race is your religion, or what religion is your race? We think about the nation built on this incredible tapestry, right, of diversity, religious freedom. And that has been true for many people who have lived here in the United States. But that has not been true for racial, ethnic, and religious minorities who continually are faced, right, with this circuitous reality of discrimination, anti-Black racism, racialization, ethnicization, right, overall marginalization. And so, what do we actually mean when we talk about, right, that the thing that is so enshrined in our First Amendment in the US Constitution? What is it about this free exercise of religion and freedom, right? And that this was so much a reality for certain kinds of people, but also served or was assumed to be able to serve as a future promise, the futurity of that promise, right, of tolerance, of religious freedom, right? Now, here is where I begin to have trouble that these notions, religious freedom or freedom from religion, it has only been extended, right, to white people. It is not, and not just white people but the religion of whiteness that is so grounded in and tethered to Protestantism, that is compared over and against every other kind of religion. And just as my colleague just said in her talk, as opening up this webinar, right? Like, what is that pedigree? Like, who are those others? Well, like, what is this Christianity? What is this exceptional, state or reality? It's a species in many ways, because to be white was already to be Christian, and to be Christian was already to be white. So those are mutually interchangeable, right? It is the dominant religion in the United States, obviously. But what about the fact that when we talk about religious freedom, and when we base that in this Constitution that was written in a time where so many others were not included, this dominant religion, right, is so enmeshed with racial dominance. It's in particular with white supremacy. Its heritage is white. It's got that, in the very real sense of the term, it's got an Anglo-Saxon heritage. And I guess I have so many other thoughts around this, right? But when we think about those that came here to the New World, whether they were Puritans or otherwise, we think of those who we turn back to as the founders and the leaders of this democracy. What about the fact that they were so steeped in a particular racialized ideology, right? And this ideology was theological, that being white is the God-sanctioned race, right? To be Anglo-Saxon already has a certain kind of divine authority and legitimation, right? And that they would begin to, like other religious groups, white ones in particular, they begin to kind of almost fetishize, right, what their roots are, right? Whether it's England or other parts, And so for them, this is Canaan land. This is a new kind of Israel, right? And that mission for them is not just religious, it's racial. And I feel like the human and human rights has not always been. Black bodies in America are still fighting to be seen as fully human. And religious freedom, the freedom of religion, the freedom to religion, the freedom to be free of religion has never been extended to Black bodies, right? We could go back we could go back to the plantation, right? Slaves had to practice their own indigenous, right, or primitive religion in secret. Do not get, and I guess the final thing that I'd like to put out there is that Black bodies do not get the privilege of just being religious like white people. That their religion is always and already racialized, and that their practices and patterns, when they do something, is hyper exaggerated as racialized. And we see this with Black Muslims, we see this with all kinds of Black religions. And so the question that I have for the audience is, what do we mean by rights? And are those rights free? And what is the human and human rights? And what is the freedom of religious freedom? For whom and for what? Thank you.
Right.